Playoff prophecy. The 2025 Major League Rugby playoffs are here. The road to Rhode Island begins, and we find out what teams make it to that championship game starting this weekend. On this episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show, we break down everything that happened in the final regular season week and what it tells us for this upcoming elimination round. We also give our predictions heading into the playoffs and who will possibly be crowned the 2025 MLR champions. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 158 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. With you this week, Matt Yee. I am Ryan Yee. It looks like it is Vandy's turn to go to Cancun, maybe. But Maddie, you are back from your celebrations from winning a fantasy MLR championship with us here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. We did not get the invite. You came in and tuned in live from the Fantasy Ruckers satellite into calling in all the way from Cancun. If in case you missed it, Maddie was partying pretty hard last week for the Fantasy Ruckers championship, bringing that home. And decided to book himself a trip on the company to Cancun, which Vandy and I missed out on. And maybe Vandy's there right now because I have not heard from him since our episode last week.
Yeah, well, it was certainly on a company. But yeah, they're celebrating. Good to be back, though. You know, you can only do so much celebration, and it was time to come back to the show, to the people, and give Vandy a little bit of time to celebrate by the pool as well.
Yeah, I don't understand. Are you guys taking shifts? Like, when is my turn? I haven't heard.
It's not your turn. Your work never stops. That's the downside of being Supreme Commissioner, Ryan. With great power comes great responsibility, and that means you are not allowed to celebrate because your season never ends.
I thought when it was a commissionership or Supreme Commissionership, I thought it was something more along the lines of me being able to book vacation whenever I wanted to.
Maybe you should win the chip next time, and then you can.
You know what? You're right.
You lost to Mr. 500.
Maybe that was what we were working and playing towards, was whether or not we would be able to take this episode off. So it is me here on this episode, and it is Maddie here with me as Vandy goes and celebrates his championship. Jam-packed episode in this one. I know that the fantasy MLR season is done and all wrapped up, but hey, we got ourselves a playoff picture. We're calling this episode, Maddie, the playoff prophecy, because we are making some predictions on this show on how we think the playoffs are going to pan out. And it's almost like a double entendre, because I feel like we fulfilled the playoff prophecy here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show by winning the championship in the OG League. I'll take the moment to show the people the Fantasy Ruckers championship jersey. I don't know how well you can see that.
Nope, sorry, Fantasy Ruckers, they win all the time. They shot down, Ryan, your praise. Your self-praise, Ryan. The Fantasy Ruckers logo always wins.
Yeah, so there you go. Fantasy Ruckers. Now, it feels good. When I was etching that in to the history books, it feels good that the Fantasy Ruckers name is on the hypothetical, or I guess real jersey, but the award that we have so highly touted is finally on that jersey that we've been covered. I know, Maddie, your name's been on there before, but it feels good to have the Fantasy Ruckers name on there as well. All right. Well, in this episode, again, playoff prophecy. We're going to give you predictions on what's to come here with the regular season wrapped up. We, of course, will also talk about that final week of the regular season, and more so a reflection of what we thought of MLR 2025, because, of course, we do have a handful of teams, 3 teams, of course, that will not be playing any more rugby here this season, here in 2025. So we'll talk about our regular season expectations and lack thereof in terms of, did these teams meet our regular season expectations? So we'll talk about that. And of course, news dump, latest news from around the league, and also a Supreme Commissioner League update, with also a little talk of rugby betting towards the tail end of this show. With no time else to waste, though, Maddie, we got to get into it. Before you do, at the Fantasy Ruckers, follow us up above where you can find the handles down below in the description. If you're listening on the pod, hit that bell, like, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Helps us a whole ton. Check out our Discord community. You can join that in the link below. Fun bunch of people over there. And also check out the fantasyruckers.com, the official fantasy rugby platform, fantasy MLR platform here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. All right, let's hop right in.
News dump.
All right, Maddie, let's get into the TFR news dump heading into the Major League Rugby playoffs. We talked a whole bunch about clinching last week, and obviously those final playoff spots have been solidified. We'll talk about it a little bit more here upcoming in our reflection. But we do have to talk about the teams that did not make it. And one of those teams being NOLA Gold, in what is probably another, in their eyes, a disappointing season from a performance standpoint. Definitely, like, I mean, what is more, I guess,
Disappointing
a
than
sure
being a NOLA
thing.
Gold fan.
Well,
sorry.
yes, but what is more of a sure thing? Just like that, we know that gravity will always be pushing you down. The fact that NOLA Gold continues to disappoint even us here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show, who we have been on record as being a people that have been high on this team with the players that they've acquired. But I will say, though, that it is not all doom and gloom. They did announce in the latest statement that they released, their end of season statement by their CEO, Alexandre Momot, that they did have a 30% increase in ticket revenue.
Wow.
So progress being made off the field.
More people watching them lose.
I mean, win or lose. I mean, the fact that you had a down season like that and you still had a 30% increase in ticket revenue, imagine what that number could have been if you were winning on the field.
Is that a down season or just a regular season?
You know, that is a question that we are still asking ourselves either way. Yeah, I mean, it's good for the future. I'm sure a lot of teams saw that, hopefully, here as more numbers of those come out. But yeah, a 4-12 season for the NOLA Gold still accounts for a 30% increase in ticket revenue, Maddie.
Imagine if they've won.
Imagine if they won. You don't have much else to say on this here, Jay.
Who cares? Your team sucks.
Fair enough. All right. And then I guess the last piece of news, again, not crazy amount outside of playoff picture stuff that we'll get into in just a bit here. But I didn't get your reaction. Obviously, Vandy got to react to it last week, but it was made official with the announcement from the Utah Warriors Rugby Club over the weekend, and also having him on the broadcast. Polisike calling it a career Utah Warrior number 1, a guy that has played 42 matches, over 2,000 minutes, a guy that is synonymous with Utah Warriors rugby and also has had a formidable playing career overseas as well. Vandy obviously had his flowers to give to Polisike with how much he's meant to him as a Utah Warriors fan. Maddie, as a neutral, but a fan of MLR, what does the retirement of Polisike mean to you?
No, I mean, you're losing a legend of the American game, and he's kind of been a staple of when he has been back in the MLR. He's been just a staple of Utah Warriors rugby, just like you said. I'm sure the Utah Warriors fan are going to be sad to see him go. Luckily, they haven't needed him too much this year. He hasn't honestly played as much as he has in the past, but every time he comes on the field is an absolute delight to watch. So he will surely be missed.
Yeah, and Vandy and I talked about it last episode in terms of just, I think, obviously this year is going to be kind of clouding, the performances of what Polisike has meant from a fantasy sense, because obviously he's been a streamer here and there that you would toss into your lineup every once in a while, obviously being a guy that has had spot starts. But I mean, just last season, this guy was as consistent as it comes, hovering around that 9.2 fantasy point production every single week, around a high of 17.5 in round 12 last year. So again, a guy that has been fading away slowly, but it hasn't been so long ago that Polisike was not fantasy relevant. And he was a guy that you just loved to watch because he was banging bodies and running people over, which was fun.
That's for sure.
There we go. All right. Yeah, other than that, not so much other news to talk about. Do you have anything, Matt? Does your sources
I do have
me?
retirement. It's like past MLR related. But I think those of the show will remember Vega de la Lega Mega Mendia.
That is true.
Who used to play for the Rattle, I believe announced his retirement, not by choice, though, unfortunately, due to concussions. I think the MLR community, I think we loved watching him play, and it'll be sad to see somebody go out that way. You know, anybody who has played rugby knows somebody who has battled concussions, and it's never great to see a mate or a lad or a teammate go out that way. But good luck to him.
I did see that announcement, and yes, the name rings a bell so quickly because you're like, Joaquin de la Vega Mendia.
Well, you hold on. You see Joaquin de la Vega, and you're like, oh, wait, I think I know that guy. And then you hear me say Joaquin de la Vega Lega Mega Mendia. then you remember.
There you go. And in terms of ranking the nicknames that we've had here on the Fantasy MLR show, the Fantasy Ruckers Show. So we've had obviously the Y. There's ones that are just there. So you got the Butcher when it comes to Dylan Fawcett. You had the Quadricep with eyeballs that was named on the MLR broadcast when it came to Ryberg, John Ryberg. Yeah. And you also have throw up there now Joaquin de la Vega La Lega Mega Mendia.
We got him. We got Fanana Banana.
That's true.
You know, we got some good ones out there, that's for sure.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, congrats on a stellar career to Joaquin de la Vega Mendia, the former Rugby Atlanta player who unfortunately has to call his career an end and hang up the boots. Anything else, Maddie, that you want to mention? I did see a quick note about Moana Pacifica naming some guys that were leaving. I know former Old Glory DC back rower Nico Jones, who was on their training squad, did not have appearances this season.
San Diego Legion Malolo was on there as well, I believe. But yeah, losing some big names. Maybe, probably not, but maybe some of them come over the MLR to play in a different league. Maybe.
That could be. Maybe.
Probably
no sources there yet, but we shall see. All right, let's talk about a little bit of these Fantasy Ruckers leagues.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yee with a Fantasy Ruckers League update. No weekly challenge results that I have as of yet of this recording of this podcast, but those will be up shortly. The Sunday, the double Sunday matches.
Do I celebrate my win already or what?
I don't see. That's probably like 99% of the reason why I didn't want to have them ready on the show, because I don't think I could
Duncan
handle
Matthews scored a double. Devon Rizzo got a red. Picked them both. I went 5-5. Right, I went 5-5. 3-1-1. Yeah, that's what I did. 5-5. Actually, you know what? I messed up my math. I did 5-5-1-1-1. I just realized that now. I must have still been drunk. Oh man. Anyways, I picked some guys.
Maybe that was just that you're taunting, right? That you're like, I'm so good that give me a $13 budget and I could still kick ass here in the weekly challenge. Again, yeah. I will say that was one of the big reasons why maybe I did not want to pull an all-nighter or work through after a busy day of work today to try to get those up, because I don't know if I could have handled hearing you about how good you are at the weekly challenge. But I will say, though, this week
last week while I was drunk.
You did. But I will say that this was a fun week. I'm sad, and part of it is due to some of these funky lineups that we'll get into here in just a bit. But like from a fantasy scoring sense, like you had San Diego scoring, I think, 50 plus points. You had a back and forth affair that had, I think, over 60 total points in the RFCLA Utah game. If you banked on Houston doing, a lot for you, which I did in the weekly challenge, it was kind of hit or miss there. I will say I was trying to go for a $2 value back three player, and it was between Semu Smith or Drake Davis. Should have went with Drake Davis, but I went with Semu Smith. So Classic. That was a tough one. But either way, it kind of highlights the different experience that the weekly challenge has to offer, and this again being the last of the regular season, it was a fun one to finish, so keep an eye out for those results that will be posted. I think just a housekeeping note, the Fantasy MLR season may be done, but that doesn't mean our breakdown and recap of the fantasy season finishes here. Throughout the next handful of weeks, we're going to let the playoffs play out. And we are going to let and really enjoy the rugby that we are set to have here in the next couple weeks. But you can expect after that we will have a full breakdown of the top performers from the year. Of course, we'll do our annual awards ceremony, which is right up there with the Oscars, with the Nobel Peace Prizes. It's easily up there.
Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were swinging that high. I didn't know we were saving the world.
We are saving the world. We're saving the world with Fantasy MLR. Isn't that a thing?
Yeah. Marie Curie, Albert Einstein,
and the Supreme Commissioner.
Oppenheimer, Supreme Commissioner Yi.
I like that.
Yeah.
Which one doesn't belong here?
Probably Einstein.
Probably. So those are all to come. And again, we will have all those rankings, have all that good stuff, and we kickstart our Fantasy MLR offseason in just a few weeks' time. So, hey, make sure that you're staying tuned with the Fantasy Ruckers Show all offseason long to get that Major League Rugby and that Fantasy MLR fix that you are yearning for in the offseason months. So, again, that is to come in just a little bit. But, of course, we have playoffs here over the next couple of weeks that are going to be fun to watch. With that being said, I do want to give a big thank you once again to everyone who participated in the Fantasy MLR season this year, whether that was just the weekly challenge, whether you were in a free to play, season long league or a paid season long league. Again, we cannot appreciate or say enough how much we appreciate your support, your participation in this journey that has been so awesome. And again, I think we say it every year, I feel like, Maddie, after the end of every single season. But I think this was our best one yet. Just from the website updates, from how quick we were able to get numbers up onto the site, how many leagues we had, the fact that we did have paid leagues. I really do think that this was our best season by far, and it's only going to get better season in and season out. Yeah,
and as one human being once said on a YouTube video, next set, best set, and that's just us going into every year.
There you go. I will say quickly as well
that motivational.
That was motivational.
Why'd you laugh?
I just, you're a funny guy. It's hard for me to take anything that you say motivational or not
best
seriously.
Set, Ryan.
Next set, best set. Who said that? Quote it. Who on YouTube said that?
I think some guy named Steve Cook. He was like a workout guy. Walks around shirtless.
Next set, best set.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah. Either way. Great season. Great time with the lads. Great time with all the Fantasy Ruckers. No, I think it's just surreal just how many every year, how many more people are interacting, how many more things we do, how many more things it gives us the opportunity to socialize with people, socialize with the community, and bring a community together. And I'm glad, Ryan, we get to be the center of this community here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it would not be possible with all of you who are listening, with all of you who are watching, who all of you are playing. Again, just a big thank you to all of you. And again, quick note, the paid leagues, we are going through the team stake process, and we should get the funds distributed to the league managers who finished respective positions in their leagues that do have a payback or a payout for this past season. So stay tuned. We'll be in contact with your commissioners. We're working through that, and it should be distributed shortly. With that being said, the last piece of news, Maddie, you mentioned community. You mentioned, gathering and meeting people. You just may have the opportunity to do that. In Rhode Island.
What's happening there?
We have the MLR Championship, if you have not heard, is taking place in Rhode Island. On Rhode Island, in Rhode Island. This is something I've been struggling with. I know because, Matt, we're based out of Long Island, so it's a big thing on Long Island. Help us out here. Is it in Rhode Island or on Rhode Island? Let us know in the comments. Either way.
Yeah, all the two people from Rhode Island can let us know.
MLR Championship, Rhode Island, Centerville Bank Stadium. The Fantasy Ruckers, along with newly branded American Rugby Rising. Bill Baker, who started the Eagles Overseas stuff and now that is part of his American Rugby Rising initiative. We're teaming up here. He's in our OG league, and we're teaming up to do a show from Centerville Bank Stadium, or from the festivities that are happening there, as a pre-kickoff show that is happening. So stay tuned for the details on that. We're super, super excited. We'd love to see the people out there. If you're planning on going to Rhode Island, would love to see you over there. If you've been thinking about it and you don't know, maybe this is the caveat that gets you to make that decision. And we'd love to see you there. I know there's going to be a whole bunch of fun people there.
Yeah, no, I mean, awesome announcement. We were just talking about the opportunities that this show has given us and this community has given us, and this is one of them. Super excited, super stoked, and even though it's just us on the show, I think we have to remind people that there is a third one of us who is the heartbeat of this show, who will be there as well. And I think if you're going to come out to Rhode Island to meet anybody, you're going to want to meet that guy, because that guy is an absolute character. And when I say that guy, I mean Vandy.
Devin Vandy Vanderpool, aside from the Supreme Commissioner, of course, the one and only. But yes, I do get your sentiment there that you were saying, Maddie. So again, details, June 28th is the game. I believe 2 p.m. kickoff. We will be having our pre-kickoff show happening before that. More details are to come. What is also very exciting is that on June 27th, Friday evening, we are setting up a meetup, just a casual meetup at a location to be determined that evening for you to drop by, meet the Fantasy Ruckers, and we'll have some giveaways. We'll have some stuff there, maybe share a pint, and basically be able to just interact with all you people out there and see you guys face to face for the first time, and be able to thank you in person for all that you do. So June 27th, right around, we're looking at locations here that are based around the Centerville Bank Stadium area and in that Pawtucket area. We'll have more information coming out for that. Check out for that evening. Come out as a pre-game celebration the night before. And then on June 28th, the day of the game, we'll have a pre-kickoff show, and then, of course, be able to mingle and talk with anyone who does come out. And again, I can't emphasize enough, it'll be a great time to meet you guys, interact with you guys, and again, there's something in it for you guys too. There'll be some giveaways, and there'll be some cool stuff that we'll be able to dish out.
And you know what? I'd say that maybe you trash talk somebody in your league a little bit too much, or not enough, and you have to get some more in. Maybe you won and you gotta, gloat a little bit. You need to go on your little victory parade. Not just a great time to meet up with us, even though we'd love to meet you guys. Also just a great time for the community, the Fantasy Ruckers community, Ryan, that has come together over a beer, over a water, over a soda, whatever you fancy. I'm just looking forward to it. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, cannot wait. So again, June 27th, June 28th, mark it on your calendar. More details for exact information of what we are doing will be coming out soon. But make sure you mark off that 27th evening for meetup here with the Fantasy Ruckers. And then the 28th, join us for a pregame kickoff show. And then as well as, getting to enjoy the MLR championship, which is going to be fun, whoever may get there. But with that being said, hey, let's talk about how we got to this point and who has the shot at possibly making that MLR championship in Rhode Island by what went down in the final regular season week of Major League Rugby 2025.
Quick Tap Recap.
All right, a week 17 quick tap recap, the final regular season week. And again, we did not have necessarily fantasy MLR championships on the line here, but we did have real championship aspirations on the line here when it came to Major League Rugby teams. And I thought, Maddie, instead of breaking down each game like we usually do from a fantasy sense, because I thought that I don't know how much of this past week is necessarily indicative of what is reflected in how these teams played this season or how they are going to play in the playoffs coming up. We saw a lot of weird lineups. We saw a lot of weird matchups. We had the midweek match to kick it off between Houston and Chicago halfway through. Chicago putting out kind of a lackluster lineup and still somehow getting the job done. And then we saw weird lineups from Miami, weird lineups from Old Glory DC. Yeah, I mean, let's just start it off there, Maddie. Let's just talk about kind of an overarching thought on the final regular season week.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think, like you said, right, there's a lot of weird lineups that were coming out. A lot of weird kind of configuration. I think Old Glory DC for me was the absolute weirdest one, which reflects in how they played and how the result of that match of losing 50-5. But we also saw a lot of these different, like, we saw genuine games out there. Like, people were fighting for something. San Diego had something to fight for at the time. Seattle had something to fight for at the time.
Seedings, LA, Utah game was fun. Yeah.
Yep. LA, Utah, like there were teams with still something to play for. And I think those games were the ones that you really saw how the teams played with people on the line. Let me say that I will say that Seattle, to me, is the one that I thought put out the most, I guess when you think a lineup, the one that had the expected lineup out there versus Miami. And you saw a Seattle team that needed to win. They had to win. If they didn't win, they were going home, literally. And they had to win, and they came out tight with Miami, and they came through kind of blowing Miami out of the water in that second half. So, yeah, I love the way Seattle looks right now. For me, that's kind of like the dark horse for me going into this last game, because you're going into the end of the season. You finish off on a high note. We've seen momentum work in this league, in other leagues, in other sports, and Seattle is on a roll right now.
Yeah. I kind of heading into this weekend, again, you mentioned it, Maddie, Seattle needing that bonus point win to book themselves into the playoffs, with San Diego getting that bonus point win against Old Glory DC. You got to be like, if you're Seattle, right, Maddie, like, and you see the lineup that Old Glory DC puts out, like, I get it. That's it. In the end of the day, like, it didn't matter because Seattle ended up getting that bonus point win. But you got to be sitting there on Saturday or Friday when Old Glory DC put that on. You'd be like, "Are you kidding me?" You know what I mean? Like, you're like John Powers at fly half. Nothing against John Powers, but obviously when you have him at 10, that's not necessarily going to be your best lineup. But Seattle's got to be just looking at that and be like, are you okay? Well, I guess we know what we got to do on Sunday, and which is why we probably saw the lineup that we saw. Again, San Diego needed that victory, but again, it comes out of their hands with how they kind of tapered off in the later half of this season, which is pretty shocking to, I think, both you and I, Maddie, in terms of how they performed this season, which leads me to my first question is, with the regular season wrapped up, and we'll get into the fantasy stuff. And again, when we have our awards and all that stuff, and look back at our predictions, we'll talk about it from a fantasy sense, but from a purely rugby sense, from a pure MLR sense, what was your biggest surprise this year?
I think San Diego's an easy one, right? Like, San Diego's an easy one to say that they were the ones that disappointed a lot of people. They started off 5-0. You thought, when you started watching this team in the first 5 games, you thought this team's another juggernaut in this league. And then suddenly they just weren't. I think that's a really easy one to look at. But for me, like, it's hard to look at the anthem and not be disappointed with how much hype was around their team and how much expectations there were. Maybe the expectations were incorrect. Maybe we were overhyping them. Maybe maybe we thought too highly of them. But there was just so much noise and expectations, all these rumors coming out of all these, star American players that are stars in this MLR league, guys like Mitch Wilson, guys like Sam Galla,
Junior Gaffa,
who have been stars, coming to this team. And we thought, hey, they're going to at least get, what did you say, right? 3 wins, over 3 wins.
Yeah.
I mean, some people were even thinking like, they could get 4 or 5, they could be competitive. And we actually saw them become more competitive last year. To me, that was the most surprising part. It wasn't about the wins, it wasn't about the losses, it was about the fact that they were more exciting to watch last year. They were more competitive in the sense of kind of offensively being a team that can contribute to the entertainment factor. This year, it just wasn't the case. They had their moments. They started off strong. I think we had a lot of high hopes after the first few weeks. But just with the attrition of the season, to me, the Anthem were just the most disappointing team in terms of when you think about expectations at the start of the year.
Yeah, and we had Jake Turnbull, right, team captain, on our show during the offseason, and the optimism and the motivation to get something done this year, it seemed like it was there, and the pieces were beginning to come together, especially with, yes, the building blocks of last year obviously being disappointing, but you seeing the potential. And it felt like a year for them to step in and at least make some progress. And to your point, Maddie, it feels like they've almost taken a step back. And Vandy and I talked about it last show, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but like,
do it.
I don't know if we've had a worse start to a franchise ever in any sport.
I don't know. I don't know all the sports leagues. I don't know all the starts, but like this one's pretty bad. It's a tough one. And the other worst part about it, Ryan, is that this team is supposed to be
the future of America.
It's supposed to look that way. Like it's supposed to be a team that represents what American rugby can look like come 2030, whenever the World Cup is in America. So yeah, it's just a little bit disappointing on that side. But on a positive note, right, there's a couple teams that I think surprised me, because I don't want to talk negative the entire show. I've been doing a lot of negative. I think teams that have surprised me that I'm really happy to see thrive. Miami's one of them. Yeah. Miami's one of them. Miami to me is like, I'm so happy that they turned it on at the end of the season. For them to just turn into a team. Like they started off as a team that we thought were going to be the worst team in the league behind Anthem.
Yes.
And they have turned it around this end of the season and really have put a showing on. And honestly, I can see them continuing to be competitive in the playoffs, regardless of, even though they're playing the Free Jacks. So really love what Miami's doing over there.
Won 4 of their last 5 matches to finish their season, which is fantastic.
Which you love. And you know, again, you talk about momentum going into the playoffs, like that's momentum if you ask me.
Yep. No, I agree with there. I think Maddie, you and I are both on the same page on this one as well. I got to give a shout out to the Utah Warriors, because we thought they were going to be solid, and we thought that they would go down the timeline, right? Like this was a team this past offseason that had a mass exodus. Like we were talking about a team that got rid of a whole bunch of key players, right? Like Caleb McEnany was gone. Michael Manson, who was the best player in all of fantasy MLR last season, obviously went on to do bigger and better things, which is a good thing that you want to see, but nonetheless, still a big loss for the Utah Warriors. Like you talk about guys like that, and for them to not only just stay the same and be able to be competitive, right? They had a historical season in their franchise's year, and scored the most amount of points in all of MLR, ended off with a pretty statement win against LA over the weekend. And Utah now sitting, I think, in a lot of people's eyes as the favorites heading into this year's playoff. And we know that on any given week, there is the possibility of anyone winning, and that has been the mantra of 2025. It feels like we never had a Houston Sabercats that was just running away with things like we did in 2024. But I think with the way they play, the high-powered offense that they play, they're just very attractive for people to watch. And I think that's why we have a lot of hype. And you can't take it away from them that they, again, scored the most amount of points in all of the MLR when it comes to a standing sense. 3 more points than New England Free Jacks.
And let me tell you, like they rebuilt their roster in the right way, and they used their roster in the right way. You think about a team that wasn't necessarily, I would say, I mean, let's think about last year, Nick Sushan at Utah, right? You think about the year he had at Old Glory DC the year before. He comes to Utah. He struggles. Why? Because the set piece isn't necessarily what he had at Old Glory DC. The set piece just wasn't the same. You come to this year and you're looking at one of the best set pieces head and shoulders above the rest in the MLR. like the type of set piece and where you give a penalty away and you let them kick to the corner within the 50, within this, like within even like 60 meters in, 65 meters in, it's 90% a try. Like that was for me, the biggest surprise on this Utah team. You look at that Utah roster and you think Joel Hodgson, Jordan Trainer, D'Angelo Leila, Joe Mono, all these guys, Nick Ben, like all these guys on this team, and you think backline is their strength. Backline is their strength. You watch their games in the backline. Yes, it's amazing to watch, but their strength is in the set piece, and their set piece will punish you day in, day out, and that has won them many games. Solely won them games, honestly, in some cases.
I mean, how big of an addition was Liam Coltman?
Yeah, I mean, you just see him just so clinical at the back of lineouts. As a 9, I don't know what goes on in there. I know absolutely nothing, but I know that he does know exactly when and where to go, and when to do it. So it's amazing to watch.
He went on a stretch this year between round 6 and 12 where he scored a try in every single match.
Yeah,
like that's 5 straight matches with a try. Liam Coltman. If that is not a encapsulation of just how the Utah Warriors have turned around their season in terms of being one of those guys that was a fantastic addition. You can add him to the list of D'Angelo Leila, Jordan Trainer. Just really, really, really a team that, again, went from mass exodus to a top of the standings in all of Major League Rugby. Anything else? I think I will say, and I get it, they bought their ticket into playoffs, but I will say that RFCLA has left me heading into playoffs wanting, right? Like, I feel like I've been the in-house RFCLA proponent all season long. They were my prediction going into this season as the MLR champions, which could still happen. But it does feel like, though, they just don't have all the pieces there to possibly get it done. Now, again, any given weekend, they could put it together, but it does feel like for every 2 steps that they take forward, they do take a step back, whether that's a yellow card at a misopportune time, whether that is just errors at certain aspects of the game, allowing a team to go up by 20 points and have to work back, right? Which is what we kind of saw here against Utah. It does feel like RFCLA, yes, they made playoffs, and that is a great step forward for this franchise. But it does feel like, though, there is a little bit lack of potential that they may have missed here heading into this year.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, they look great. I think where you really struggle to support this team is defensively. And like, I'll be honest, not unlike the Utah team of the past few years before this year. Like, you think about the similarities of...
It's true.
Awful defensively, great backline, set piece is incredibly mediocre.
Yeah.
Like it just reminds me of that, of the Utah team of old. And you still see flashes from Utah as well this year of the very much the same.
Yeah. All right. Well,
look where Utah is.
It's true. It is true. So we'll see whether or not they can take steps up again. With the results over the weekend, it is New England, Chicago, Old Glory, and Miami in the Eastern Conference. Utah, Houston, RFCLA, and Seattle heading into the Western Conference with NOLA, Anthem Rugby Carolina, and San Diego Legion looking outside in. With that being said, I guess with those teams noted, we need to break those down and maybe offer some predictions.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, our first ever Rucking Rundown playoff edition. We're going to break these down. We got 4 teams in the East, 4 teams in the West. We got to offer up some predictions here heading into this weekend. Before I do get into it, Maddie, let me get your reaction. Now that it has played out, and obviously the trials and tribulations heading into this year with the Dallas Jackals, obviously, ceasing to exist with the odd number of teams in the league. The expansion of the playoff with 4 teams from each conference making it. I did see an interesting tweet that was sent out by James Dealey of MLR Stats and North American Rugby Database, saying that the San Diego Legion, they finished last in the Western Conference, but that would have been good enough to finish, I believe, third in the Eastern Conference. So what dynamic? There's that proponent of it. There's 4 teams, like you got 4 teams from each division, only one in the Western Conference not making it. Like people can start talking about maybe a wild card slot from conferences or things like that. But just with the playoff picture set, before we get into breaking down that playoff picture, what are your thoughts now that it has played out about this format?
I mean, like, how many 500 teams are making it into the playoffs? There's 5 essentially. Like, let's just include a tie as a loss because ties are losses in my book. So you have 500 teams make it into the playoffs.
You could also,
I don't know if you can say much more of that. Like that's just concerning in terms of just like the parity. Like, you think of how much parity there is this year. Talk about how any given Saturday, Sunday, any team can win. But when you look about overall record, you just look at that picture, 500 teams making it into the playoffs. That's just shouldn't happen. You're rewarded for being average.
I mean, I guess you can argue the flip side and say, is there anyone with how the season played out? Is there anyone that did not make playoffs that you think should be in there? And is there a team that should be out? I guess when you say it like that, for me, I have a hard time making that argument. Obviously, NOLA and Anthem Rugby Carolina shouldn't be there. But I would say that with the way that San Diego played towards the tail end of the year, I'm okay with them outside looking in over the fact that DC and Miami made it.
Yeah, it's a good point. I was just gonna add on, like, finish off that statement of like, and we'll get into the matchups. But I look at these matchups and I'm like, I don't think it's a cakewalk for New England Free Jacks. No. I don't think it's a cakewalk for Utah either. Like, they're 500 teams, but we know that we've seen these teams beat the other team in the past. We've seen this happen before. We've seen guys lose to lesser teams. So yeah, we say 500. We call them 500 teams, but I think on the flip side, it's like they don't play like it. It's not that much disparity between the two teams. None of these are going to be a cakewalk. Yeah.
No, I agree with you there. I think the ideal, to kind of wrap it up, I think the ideal, and I get it, you want to have more matches, but I think at least when you're with, if maybe we had a 12-team league with Dallas in it in the West, you could argue, and I would be okay with it, with the 4 teams going in, but with the kind of odd number, it just feels weird to me that the San Diego is also the only one in the West that's not making it, right? So, like, I think a 3-team, they had it similarly to that, I think, either last year or the year before, where they had the top teams in the conference go in, and
I would have been pissed if Miami didn't make it. Miami deserves to be in there.
And Seattle too, I guess you could argue as well, like Seattle getting in there as well.
Sure.
So, hey, pros and cons, double-edged sword on any format that you do. And I am warming up to the idea. I know it'd be hard because you only have an Eastern Conference and Western Conference, but like a wild card, you know what I mean? Like, make those last 2 spots in the playoffs like a wild card spot that from any conference, that might be interesting, but again, would make things hard logistically. But with that being said, again, we do have our playoff matchups set. Getting into it, we do need to wrap up our season-long predictions, and obviously, of course, with Vandy not here, we still, in fitting fashion, give him his applause. He won the regular season prediction segment. We'll see whether or not he can carry that into the playoffs, but he finishes off the year at 53, 34, and 1.
Just guessing.
Which is pretty solid. Maddie, I beat you by just 2 wins, 46, 41, and 1. And Maddie, you finished there with 44, 43, and 1. So Vandy really running away with it this season, which is incredible in terms of the leaps and bounds he's made, all learning through fantasy MLRs, the caveat, the vehicle in which he's learned this game, which again is a big reason why we're doing this thing, to get new fans like Vandy into the sport. That being said, the predictions continue, and we're going to do that here through the fantasy playoffs. We're going to have it in a 2-fold type fashion, though. We're going to make our full-long playoff predictions here on this show. We're going to write the playoff prophecy, but then obviously, like any good Supreme Commissioner does, we're going to go back and rewrite history next week when inevitably one of our predictions gets wrong, and we'll see how those go. Either way, let's go off of what we have. The matchups heading into this weekend. We got a matchup between the Utah Warriors and Seattle Seawolves. In the Western Conference, the 1 and 4 seeds, the Houston SaberCats, the 2 seed, taking on RFCLA, the 3 seed. So Utah, Houston at home for those. And then on the Eastern Conference side of things, you got New England, the 1 seed, hosting the Miami Sharks in the 4 seed, and the Hounds of Chicago in the 2 seed, hosting Old Glory DC. So we open up the weekend on Saturday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, between Chicago and Old Glory DC. This one's going to be an interesting one because I haven't been bought in. Chicago has been scrapping out wins when they need to, but I just don't know if I'm as confident as I was with them towards the earlier parts of the season. They face an Old Glory DC side that, of course, obviously clouded by the 50-5 loss that they had against San Diego Legion with a subpar lineup. Old Glory DC has actually been playing really, really well, even without having Jason Robertson at that 10 position, losing them for the season. Jason Emery has done a very adequate job in doing that, but they basically have won, doing the math here, 4 of their past 5 matches, not including the San Diego Legion game. They did lose 2 in a row with LA before the Legion game, but I think a lot of people are arguing that Old Glory DC has been a very hot team, and they're taking on a Chicago team that does play a specific style of rugby, in that being kind of a nitty-gritty Northern Hemisphere style that may take it to Old Glory DC.
Yeah, maybe. It's possible. But Chicago's also coming off a pretty big win against the Houston SaberCats as well, back on the Wednesday game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you could say that you could have faith in some of the teams. However, I do believe that Chicago here will be able to get the win.
Yeah, I think I will agree with you there. Again, I think we do, and I'll say it, Matt, I'll let you make the decision on whether you agree that I do think I need to give Old Glory DC fans an apology in terms of the expectations I had with them coming into this season. I think them making the playoffs is definitely a lot higher than what I thought it was going to be, especially being at the 3rd seed. I think we got maybe caught up in the hype of a lot of teams adding a lot of really, really cool players and Old Glory DC not really doing much. But despite that, they ended up finishing 3rd here. Again, a very successful year for them, but I will say that I do still think Chicago has edge. Again, it's 2 teams that I think the matchup I'm probably least confident in the result.
Interesting. Okay.
I think in terms of me seeing a picture of either side winning this, I think this is the match that marks it there. I think we'll go with that, but I think we're on the same page. I'll put my money on Chicago, or should I make it interesting? Should I make it interesting?
My goodness, Ryan, make up your mind.
All right, no,
You're just waffling. You're just waffling about this now.
I'll go Chicago on this one. All right. The next matchup coming up 3 hours later, 10 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday, the Utah Warriors take on the Seattle Seawolves.
Now, we talk about one that I'm least confident in. This is one that I'm least confident in. You talk about a dark horse in the playoffs. Seattle Seawolves are a dark horse in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, they are the dark horse. I watch this Utah team. I just see so many holes. I mean, how do you give up 33 points or whatever you did to LARFC in a single second half for like in 60 minutes? Like, that's concerning to me. And this isn't the first time they've done it. Like, we've seen teams come back. We've seen them give up a lot of points early and have to try to come back. I'm not confident in Utah as a 1 seed. Like, I'm not confident in them. I think they have a great game. Oh, my mic cut out here.
No, sorry, you're good. I can hear
you. I'm just not confident in Utah playoff rugby. And I think Seattle are a seasoned team that know how to play on both sides of the ball extremely effectively and know how to play on all facets of the game extremely effectively. With great coaching that has been here before. Like, we have to remember that Utah, was this their first time here in the playoffs? I want to say maybe, probably not. But like this is their first time in this type of position, though.
Yes.
Right. Like this is the first time in this
Favorites.
position. I think Seattle can come out here with a win. I think Seattle can come out here as a dark horse, and I think Seattle does it here.
Oh, you know who's not going to like hearing that?
I don't care. Tell him to say it to my face.
That's true. We'll bring him back on the show.
Can't say much when he comes back on the show and Utah is sitting in Cancun, not celebrating.
You're right. I have been on this show before talking about how much I've loved Seattle and the way that they've been playing towards the tail end of the season. And to pick up and strap up, right? And
The heck is that from?
pick up and strap up. I don't know. I just made it on the spot here. Sorry, it's not as inspirational as your sets. What was it?
My sets? My best set, next set?
Yeah, there you go.
Next set, best set?
The Utah Warriors are going to face, again, a very tough Seattle team, a team that has been picking it up at the right time. This is, and I don't think it's to the same effect, but this is, like you're saying, Maddie, a Dallas Jackal situation. Do I think Utah should come away with the win here? Yes, I do think they should.
4 weeks ago, Ryan, Seattle beat Utah 28-24. 4 weeks ago. That's not long ago.
No.
And I would argue that the back line has gotten even better than 4 weeks ago, Seattle.
You're right.
Like you think about the stars playing right now, and the stars on that Seattle team have come into form. Rodney Iona has come into form. Duncan Matthews is vintage, and Devon Rousseau is an absolute weapon. Well, let's see if he's not suspended for next week. I hope not, because that would be a shame.
That would be.
After that red card. But so, I mean, a lot of this pick relies on that because they need him. But regardless, I do think, I genuinely think Seattle here is going to take the win.
I think, and we'll talk about it more. Is there any possible way? We'll talk more in the TFR Betting Challenge. So maybe I'm getting a little ahead. Is there any way that Utah comes into this game as underdogs?
Ryan, too early. We got to go talk about that in the betting challenge.
Okay. All right. The reason why I say that, I am scratching and clawing at a way to figure out how to get Utah to the final so that Vandy, with us being there, we can go find a way to get him on the squad.
Yeah, all right. I don't think they're going to put him on the squad in the final, but yeah, we can
Are you
try.
sure? I think he basically looks like a poor man's Liam Coltman.
Oh. Yeah,
Close enough.
Liam Coleman's, he's like 6 feet. Vandy's like 5'8" on a good day.
On a good day. All right. Well, hey, I will go Utah on this one. I see every single point that you're making, Maddie. And again, I've been on this show talking about how excited I am for the Seawolves team. I just really want to see Utah. I want to see. I think one of the biggest things, and spoiler alert, I'm going to be picking this team when we get to it in the Eastern Conference. I do not want to see another one of these perennial teams who have been here, done that before in the final. And we've seen that over and over and over again. I just want to see something different. And having Utah in the final would be a nice version of that. So I will go with the favorites there at the 1 seed at home with the Utah Warriors beating the Seawolves on Saturday. All right, Sunday, 2:00 Eastern time. This is the one I'm talking about. New England taking on Miami. I think first, I got to say, congratulations to Miami. I think they've had a spectacular season. I think they've done great. I'm not betting against the New England Free Jacks, the back-to-back winning MLR champion Free Jacks. We counted them out earlier in the year, and then they decided to just stick around. And they maybe don't look the best. Maybe they don't look how they have in the past, but they find a way to win matches. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. They find a way to win this match and find themselves in the Eastern Conference final.
Yeah, hard to go against that. Yeah, hard to go against that. I mean, it's the New England Free Jacks, so I will also choose the New England Free Jacks. Again, do not think this is going to be a walk in the park. I think Miami's going to put up a good fight, especially with just a looming understanding of what the injuries are for the Free Jacks. I'm really interested to understand whether Potros is back, really understand to see what the status of John Pullen is, I don't know if we've gotten any updates on that. But Potros hasn't played for a few months now, couple months now. So maybe he's resting for the playoffs. Maybe he's back for this game only, just coming back in time for the playoffs. So we will see. But yeah, New England Free Jacks.
All right, last matchup, Sunday, 8:30 Eastern time to wrap up the first round, or the semifinals of the MLR playoffs, conference semifinals of the MLR playoffs. Houston at home taking on RFC LA. It's another interesting one. I think obviously it's why they're 2-3 seeds. Like, I guess a good way to put this, would you have any more confidence in either of these teams if they were taking on the Seawolves? Or do you think Seawolves are really the team that's going hot into this?
No, I mean, look, it's I don't know how you go against Houston here. Like, I have a hard time. Like, to me, this is the most lopsided game, even though it's a 2-3 seed.
Is that so?
Like, I just have a hard time.
More lopsided than New England, Miami. I think that's okay.
Yes. We just watched the New England team like win by 3 against Nola Gold, and Nola Gold stink. So like, and yeah, they had a different lineup and stuff, but yeah, or whatever. Like, New England Free Jacks they've kept games tight. Like, games have been kept tight, and Miami's solid. Like, Miami knows how to play. With LA, like, Houston's a bit too clinical for this LA team, defensively and offensively. And this Houston team, to me, is different than what was last year, where last year they just relied on one thing only, and those are forwards. This year, this Houston team has found a way to be a lot more versatile, be able to play a lot of different facets of the game, and they have been found a way to kind of just, be a wagon.
Does that change at all, not knowing the status of Davy Kutzer?
I think, no, I don't think so. Let's assume he's out. I don't think so, to me. Like, I still think that LA will find a way to beat themselves.
And that's been the storyline of the year. Can they put together a match, which I don't think I've seen yet, against other formidable opponents, where they have not, even if they've come out with a win in the end, have there been periods of time in a match where they have not made a costly mistake that has cost them and put the result in jeopardy? This is what they got to do. They have to put it together if they have any shot at beating the Houston SaberCats. I went into this season saying that this team was going to win the championship. I have to stick with my guns, and I have to at least get them into the conference final. So I'm going to side with LA here. I'm not confident about it. It's probably my least confident pick out of everything I've chosen. I do see a world where maybe they just have a scorcher of the game and they're just able to outscore the Houston SaberCats.
They've done it before.
I think out of all the teams in the West that have made playoffs, that's the team that they can do it against, right? I think it would be hard for me to argue against Seattle, and hard, especially Utah. I mean, you just saw it over the weekend. There is a world where they can just flat out outscore Houston, and there is a shot here for them to have the upset here over the 2 seed. So I'm going to go RFC LA in this one. So that means we have an Eastern Conference final between the New England Free Jacks and the Chicago Hounds. Both of you are in agreement with that. For me, I'm going to keep it plain and simple. I think New England's winning this one. I think New England is going to a final. And I think it's just their veteranship has been there, and this is the situations that they know best out of every single team in the MLR. You may not think that they have the best team on paper. You may not think that they have the most firepower or they have holes, but I do think that New England finds a way to figure it out at this time of the year. We counted them out early in the year. Like I said, I sound like a broken record now, and I think they're going to find a way to book their ticket to Rhode Island and make a championship, which is going to feel like a home game for them, to be fair.
Yep, for sure. On board with you there.
All right, New England Free Jacks, easy. All right, is there anything to be said about the Chicago? Like, is there a world? What does Chicago need to do to beat New England in this one?
I mean, they just got to play better than New England. Score more tries. No, I don't know. I just there's a world. It's a tight game. It's going to be a tight game. I think we just are backing experience in this case.
I agree. All right, Western Conference. So, Maddie, you have the Seattle Seawolves taking on the Houston SaberCats. The floor is yours.
Look, I think this Houston team is different than last year, than the team that got
you're
upset.
gonna put in the same final we had last year, aren't you?
No. I'm not. I think the Houston team's different. I think the Seattle team, while they've been good going into the end of the year, they've had their losses. And I think Houston is just a little bit more seasoned this year. They just have a little bit more versatility. Again, they can play in multiple facets of the game, a little bit more consistent, and they've shown it all season. I think Houston wins it against Seattle.
I spoke too soon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should be.
I didn't mean to do that. All right.
You should be.
Houston has never won a playoff match.
Oh, they're going to win too, at least.
All right. Well, that's pretty crazy to see. All right. So for me then, so you have a New England Free Jack Houston final. Yeah. I will have Utah versus RFCLA.
You're going to go Utah.
I am going to go Utah in this one. I'm going to go Utah. Utah is they're the same. They're just the better team that has proven to me with that. So New England versus Utah is what I have, which would actually be a dream scenario. I want to see a trip to Rhode Island with the New England Utah final would be a great way for Vandy. Do you think he gets like a restraining order put on him? Like a great with his family there. He's just super fan Vandy. Never seen a Utah fan. We'll get his jersey.
Joe Peterson was there maybe, but
yeah, fair enough. And then we get to see some of our boys. Q, we could go say hi to him and things like that. That'd be a pretty fun final. So I have New England versus Utah. You have the Free Jacks versus Houston. Yeah. I'll let you go first, Maddie. Who is your 2025 MLR champion?
Great question. If this were the scenario, New England versus Houston, I think Houston takes it. I think Houston wins their first MLR championship. I think the New England Free Jack franchise dynasty stops here, or at least hits a little bit of a road bump or a speed bump, and Houston takes the championship here.
All right. I'm going to go with Utah. I am going to go with Utah. Just I have no real reason why I should pick New England in this one, especially if it's New England-Utah matchup, but I don't know. I love watching Utah play, and I will say to an extent that's the reason why I've also really loved RFCLA play, and people have been in our Discord about it, about like the admiration, the enamor behind just watching fast-paced Southern Hemisphere rugby, and I enjoy the sport so much more, and I know there's opinions based on that, and to see a team who has done that and taken advantage of that this year, especially from where they started, I think that'd be a really cool storyline. So again, New England is the more experienced team, but I think Utah seeing them win a final, and you heard me say it before, I don't want to see the dynasty of what New England is, but it is going to be tough. Any team that goes to the final against New England, if they make it, is going to be tough, because that Rhode Island Centerville Bank Stadium is going to be rocking for the red, white, and blue for the New England Free Jacks. I already know that Jacks Rangers they've already booked out a whole section of New England fans, regardless of who's in there. So it's going to be an interesting one. Anything else you'd like to say about those predictions, Maddie?
No, just looking forward to some playoff rugby.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit of money and what we predict for these matchups here. First playoff matches to be this weekend.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, TFR Betting Challenge, a playoff edition of the TFR Betting Challenge. The betting challenge is brought to you by Betstamp. Betstamp betting made easy. Link down below. If you haven't yet, it's your chance to get in on the action of Major League Rugby. Yeah, why not? It's the exciting. You don't have to worry about fantasy anymore. You can bring that angst over to sports betting. No more healthier thing than that, right? Obviously.
Wow.
But I think this is going to be an interesting week for matches, especially from the betting scene. So you can get in on some new user-free bets by using the link down below. The link curates whatever sports books are available in your area, and you can hop on there, check if Major League Rugby is there, and get in on some of these games. This past week, won $10. Pretty solid. It was an up and
Good
down
for
week.
you.
Lost out on the money line that was the Houston SaberCats outright winning and beating Chicago, and also lost out on the San Diego drubbing of Old Glory. I thought Old Glory could at least cover 10.5 points. They couldn't have been more opposite of that. Did, though, cover the over. It was my first over bet of the year. Over of the RFCLA Utah game, which I had me sitting pretty because by the first half, they were at like 50 points. And I'm like, okay, this is great. And then did hit the under on the Houston SaberCats Anthem game. And also, which led me to $10. Vandy went all in on that Chicago money line with Houston covering, I believe, 7.5. And popped $17 profit on that. So he is leading me by almost $30 there with $87.62. I'm at $59.82. So I'm saying it because I haven't won yet that this challenge continues into the playoffs. So with that, we bring in Maddie for the betting lines that he predicts going into this week. 4 matches, going to be interesting. Are there any ones that you're looking particularly at? And I guess we'll know that by the lines that you place.
Yeah. Look, I think it's no surprise how I just talked about the game, is that there is one that I'm going to look at, but let's go down the list. Okay. So Saturday we got Chicago Hounds, Old Glory DC. I think Chicago Hounds are the clear favorites here. I think they're going to be favored here by 5.5. I mean, it's playoff rugby, so I don't know what the lines are for playoff rugby, but I do think they are going to be favored by around 5.5. I think Chicago covers that. I think they'll be fine. Utah Warriors, Seattle Seawolves on this Saturday. I think Utah will be the favorite. Ryan, there's no way they're the underdog. Just no way. I think Utah will be the favorite. I think they could be favored by 6.5. And I think Seattle covers this. I think Seattle wins. Obviously, that's my prediction. But I think they'll at least cover that. I think it's going to be a close game. I would say that the cutoff for me is if this line comes out at like 3.5 and you're not too sure about Seattle winning, just stay away from it. I would say that anything over 5.5, I would cover. I would put money on Seattle to cover that anytime.
How much do those points change, or your willingness on the spread, if Devon Rousseau is not in the lineup?
Oof. I mean, I wouldn't touch that with the 10-foot pole if Devon Rousseau is not in the lineup.
All right, good to know.
Just don't trust it. New England
Does that
Free
make you
Jacks,
any more confident to pick Utah in that sense?
Yes, I would. Utah wins if Devon Rousseau is not in the lineup.
Okay.
New England Free Jacks, Miami Sharks. Free Jacks are going to be favored. I think this is going to be the biggest spread that there is. I think the Free Jacks are going to be favored by like 8.5, which you think is a little crazy, but I do think that this one's going to be a big spread. If it's over 6.5, actually, if it's over 7.5, take Miami to cover. I think this one's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a runaway. And I think Miami makes it close, but I do think New England still wins. And then for the last one, Houston versus RFCLA, I think Houston are going to be favored. Actually, I said the Free Jacks would be the biggest spread. I think this one's going to be the biggest spread. I think Houston is going to be favored by 8.5 here. Let's say 9.5 just to make it the biggest spread. Let's say 9.5. And yeah, I mean, look, anything over 8.5, I would say that LA can cover it.
Yeah.
But I mean, anything over a try, I would say LA can cover it. What I'm really kind of curious of how the books are going to be treating this playoff rugby. Like we've seen playoff rugby in the past, anything can happen. The games are tight. The games are competitive. But yeah, I take Houston to win this one. I don't think that, I think that a close line for LA, like if it comes down to 4.5 spread.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that one.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what the books think with these playoff lines. Like how tight are they going to be? I would be shocked. I would be shocked to see any line over a try. But if I do see that, I'm really liking underdog plays this weekend.
And just to leave people on the last note, things to look out for both your lines, as in your betting lines, not any other lines. And the predictions or who you're going to take if you're doing any money line betting is a few things. So Seattle, Devon Rousseau, what his status is. I would definitely look out for that. Like we talked about things change without Devon Rousseau in that lineup. Definitely look out for that. The New England Free Jacks really look out for Jason Potros. Honestly, the more if Jason Potros or John Poland are back in, my confidence in them grows. And that line or the requirement for the spread for Miami to cover gets bigger, because I'm not sure exactly, like with Jason Potros and guys back in, things could change. And then with the Houston SaberCats, Ryan, I think you brought this up early. Davy Kutzer, I think something to definitely look out for. If Davy Kutzer is back, then my confidence in Houston grows, and the chances for RFCLA to cover or even win depletes. So a few things to look out as the lineups come out.
And just because I have the hots for the over-under plays, because they won me a decent amount of money.
Ryan, stop encouraging coward plays.
No, I think they're smart plays. I do like the over.
Cowardice.
Okay, just remember, I would say this, the caveat. 60 plus points. I've seen that a whole bunch on sportsbooks. 60 points is a hard number to reach. I think the Utah LA game from the past weekend is a outlier when it comes to teams being able to hit that 60-point mark. So that is why I saw the Houston SaberCats, like Anthem Rugby Carolina over the weekend, was sitting at like 59.5 or 58.5 or whatever it was that I hit on it. And to me, I was just like, Utah, the Utah Warriors and LA RFCLA, the two highest scoring teams, were gonna have a tough time hitting that. They did, but it wasn't by far. Yeah, they came in the line, Maddie. 64.5 was the total over under for Houston, Anthem Rugby Carolina. So anything above 60, I am staying away from. But I will say anything other, I'm very high on the overs between Utah and Seattle, LA and Houston. I will say I am a fan of the under for Hounds, Chicago, or DC. I think any game with Chicago Hounds, they do tend to eat up the time a little bit and not have as much scoring. So that being said, TFR Betting Challenge. Take Maddie's lines for what you will in terms of using that as advice and as a litmus test for what plays you should have this week. And hey, that's just some of the stuff that I thought of. Again, TFR Betting Challenge brought to you by Betstamp. Hit that link down below. Free bets for new users at sportsbooks available in your area. All right, Maddie. Again, I guess with you being on the show, welcome back from Cancun. Congratulations on the Fantasy Ruckers Championship. I will show the jersey once again, because I don't think our viewers or listeners, especially John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, can see it enough with our name sitting pretty on that.
Logo still wins. Nobody's seen the picture because the logo still wins.
That is true.
Fantasy Ruckers above all.
Anything else you'd like to say to the people, Maddie?
No, just happy fantasy. Well, not fantasy. Happy MLR playoffs. Enjoy a game without the stress of fantasy. And enjoy some good rugby over the next few weeks. And looking forward to talking about it again next week.
Yeah, the road to Rhode Island begins.
Let's do it.
Book it. 27th, 28th. The Fantasy Ruckers will be there. Just a reminder. So, hey, make sure. We'd love to see you out there. Another little caveat on why you should head out to Rhode Island. And we'll see which of these teams make it. For Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and we'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
Playoffs.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.